यनं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्त्वनिवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। नमः श्री शंकरानंद गुरुपादाम्बुजन्मने सविलास महामोह ग्राह ग्रासैक कर्मणे। Let's chant also verses number 26, 27. Yeah, let's just do 26 and 27, those two. Number 26. Tad bhogaya punarbhogyam. Sorry. Tad bhogaya punarbhogya. पुनर्भोग्य भोगायतन जन्मने भोगायतन जन्मने पंचीकरोति भगवान् प्रत्येकं व्यदादिकम् द्विधा विधाय चैकैकम् द्विधा विधाय चैकैकम् चतुर्धा प्रथमं पुनः स्वस्वेतरद्वितीयांशैः स्वस्वेतरद्वितीयांशैः योजनात् पञ्चपञ्चते। So, in the previous verse, we saw that in the last two verses we saw the similarity of the individual jivas and the total Ishvara, the Paramatma, Bhagavan, the actions of both of them to the nature of the actions of both of them, the nature of the actions of both of them. And the nature of action is that we saw that in verse number 24, Pragyaha tatra abhimanena taijasatvam prapadyate was the first line of verse number 24, which said is that the deep sleeper in the middle of the night sometimes, several times during the night, takes on the identification with a dreamer. So actually the whole thing in life, this is an important thing to see, the entire thing in our life is a sense of identification. So what that means is, the sense of identification means that I am someone who takes on a role. This is really the crux of this is the crux of saying an identification. Okay, identification. So, for example, when you say I'm an engineer, this is an identification with engineering. That I am, a Brahmana or Kshatriya is a identification. And Brahmana or Kshatriya, the very jati, is a very interesting one. Really speaking, one who is born with some DNA and so on and so forth, there is no Brahmana DNA. But you are made to identify with Brahmana. I don't know when that happens, but I would imagine when the child is like 3 years old or so and say, "Do you know you are a Brahmana?" It says, "What? I am what? My name is John or somebody, or whatever, some Indian name." He says, no, you are a Brahmana. So he says, "What does that mean?" "Just give me some candy, that's all I want." He says, no, you are a Brahmana. And then it is drilled into him. He's made to sit separately, and then chants are given to him, and so on and so forth. So pretty soon he says, "I'm a Brahmana." Identification. So similarly here also, this is what happens. I'm a Republican. I'm a Democrat. So the whole life is really made up of abhimanam. Abhimanam means that my identification. And a technical word of abhimanam is tadatmyam. Tadatmyam means that tasya bhavam tadatmyam. Whatever you are identified with, you kind of put that on. And it's really speaking very much like putting clothes on. And so when you're well dressed, then you feel I am a well dressed person, or I'm casually dressed. I'm a casually dressed person. This is an identification. It is a dress, but you take on the quality of the dress on yourself. Abhimanam, tadatmyam. So the whole life is really nothing but tadatmyam, tadatmyam, tadatmyam. And the funny part is that all of them are false, in the sense that you have to see who is it that is identifying. The one who is identifying is not is the identifier. So the we have to look at who the identifier is. The identification brings in some set of laws with it, So when you are a Brahmana, then you have to do some things. The set of laws govern that identification. But the whole thing is nothing but identification. And so the human being, also the very status of a human being is that of an identification with humanness. That also is not reality. Not reality. Living is also an identification. I'm alive is an identification. And so the one who identifies by saying I'm alive is not an identification. That is the person. But all other identifications are really like roles that you play. Anyway, so that's a general commercial for this. But here, one particular aspect of that, now you can see, if you look at, with those comments, the first line of the verse 24, Pragyaha tatra abhimanena taijasatvam prapadyate. So, Pragyaha, and if you look at the English translation of that, on number 24, Pragyaha means this deep sleeper. And actually, as we have seen, the pragya is actually, you don't say I'm a pragya because you are not there at that time. But we know your status of deep sleep. So that deep sleeper then identifies with the subtle body as becomes Taijasa. So you become the dreamer. And in fact, as later on it will go into it also, that the prajna is the one that becomes the waker. So the waking state is also an identification. I'm a waker, I'm awake. This is not true. I am temporarily awake. I'm assuming the status. It's a movie. And because it lasts so long, it looks real. And so just like you have a play, you know, this is what happens in these television series. So you try to watch one episode, and you're sort of distant from it. You're examining who are the characters, what is the story. I'm not sure that I like it. We all have limited time, and so on and so forth. But supposing you get hooked up, you say this is good, then you wait for the second series, then the third episode, third episode of the series, fourth episode. Pretty soon you start to identify with the story and the people in it. There is some identification which is long lasting. Now you can say, I wonder what's going to happen. Is he going to be alive or dead? He's very sick. And are they going to get married or not? And so on and so forth. So you can start projecting in the future. You also remember the past. The past. It was very fascinating just to think. My mother had a fascinating memory. I must say that. I don't have a fraction of her memory. I've gone after my dad. My father also had very poor memory, and I do too. And I'm blessed with it. It's good. I don't get a lot of details, and so whatever happens, happens. It's okay. My only problem is I don't remember people's names if I don't see them often enough. But that's okay. It's a tolerable thing. My mom had terrific memory. And I remember when I would go and visit her when she was alive, and she would give me such detail about the series, the soap opera that was going on. She could remember 4 years worth of things. If I had the time and if I had the interest, I was trying to be polite, but I was not really interested in any one of them. I just wanted to be with her. But otherwise, she would have told me everything. That they met in such and such place, then he was transferred to Africa, and as much as the real life. And so really speaking, our real life is also this, like a series. It is episode after episode after episode. You wake up in the morning, and this is what it is. That's the only distinction between a dream and the waking, is that you wake up in the morning and there is a series still going on. In most cases happily, in some cases unhappily, you have the same spouse. Same spouse, same children, neighbors, bosses, and so on and so forth. And they would also disappear pretty soon, sooner than you think. And then there is time for a new series in the next life. But during that time, you have an identification. And identification means that I am now as a waker. I am me. And in the dream, this whole thing has a funny twist to it. And the twist is that you are a Taijasa, you're a dreamer, but only for the short span of a dream. Then the dream ends, and then you are another dreamer. And one interesting thing that will come later on, I'll go into more detail, that really speaking, you also have sukha dukkha, pleasure and pain, even in dream. even in dream. So this is what is called the manasika karma. I'll hold on for a second. I'll explain all of that. Anyway, so the only point here is that there is a identification from one state to the other. This is what happens in the human beings. And now what the Shastra tells us is that really speaking, the same thing happens at the macrocosmic level. Ishvara, with changes obviously, it's not quite the same, but similar, very similar. Ishvara also, who is like for example in the pralaya means, which comes every 50 million years or so, when the whole thing has been put into deep sleep. Then when the new dawn starts for the next 50 million years, then there is an identification with Hiranyagarbha. And Hiranyagarbha, so he says, the second line, Hiranyagarbhatam Ishaha. Ishaha. Ishaha means Ishvaraha. He also has an identification. And that identification is full of knowledge. So there is no ignorance, there's no problem. Actually, even in our case, when we become a waker, there is no problem per se, because our waking is to solve a problem. It is meant to solve a problem. And the solution of what problem is it meant to solve? We have a lot of desires in the form of our previous karmas that are waiting to fructify. Waiting to fructify. And so we have to obey the karmic phalam, the result of the karmic actions. And Ishvara just doles out that based on the individual karmas. But Ishvara doesn't have any karmas of his own. Every karma is something which was designed by him. And based on the individuality of the people. So his identification with Hiranyagarbha is not based on ignorance or any desires per se. It is natural. This is the way it is. And it perpetuates itself throughout. Never began, will never end. Only the individuals will begin and end. Individuals also never began, but the separate identification will end. Anyway, I'm going to too much detail. All I wanted to say was that the process of identification is very similar of those. And then number 25 simply explains it. And I'll just do the English translation of that. Hiranyagarbha, due to knowledge of identity with all the Taijasas, with oneself, becomes a macrocosm, whereas on account of lack of it, those who are other than Hiranyagarbhas, namely the Jivas, are called by the name microcosm. Very simple. There's nothing much to there. Now let's move forward with number 26. So he says, Tat bhogaya punarbhogya bhogayatanam janmane panchi karoti bhagavan prati ekam vyadadikam. So let's look at the individual word meanings. Bhagavan, Ishvara, which we started to define, and we'll complete that today. What does the word Bhagavan mean? It's a very technical word, Bhagavan. So Ishvara, punaha, thereafter, after developing the subtle bodies, the subtle bodies means the Taijasas. So the dream is all subtle body. And waking is partial subtle body and partial gross body. So here he says, after the subtle bodies have been developed in the sense that they come into being, now tad bhogaya, so Bhagavan punaha tad bhogaya, for their fulfillment of desires. So the subtle bodies are characterized by unfulfilled desires. These are the vasanas that have been there and are still there in our account. So some vasanas have been have fructified in this life, and there's a whole bunch of vasanas that are sitting there waiting to fructify. And due to some rules or some structure, a portion of them are taken up and fructify in our living life. So the tad bhogaya means that for the fructification of our desires. So that's what it means, tad bhogaya. So the bhoga means a actual experience. The word bhoga means an experience. Dukkha or either sukha or dukkha or neutral. One or those three. All bhogas. And for the experience, bhogya bhoga ayatanan janmane. And for the creation of sense objects and gross embodiments. I'll have a better word than embodiments in a minute on for ayatanam, but for the time being, let's just look at what it is. Then vyadadikam. Vyad means space. Space, etc. For each one of them is panchi karoti, grossified by the process of fivefold self-division and mutual combination. Anyway, this doesn't mean much. So let's just look at the English translation, the sentence, and then we will start to explain what it really means. So the English sentence is, Ishvara thereafter grossifies each of the five elements, beginning with space, to create the sense objects and the places. Embodiments means the places for the experience of the jiva. Ayatanam is called a place. So, in fact, I was just got reminded, I just wanted to bring it in as a reference point. I don't know how many of you have gone through this basic book called Tattva Bodha, and I think I recommended that those of you that have not gone through Tattva Bodha, please do so, or at least have some knowledge of it. So here in this book, so the first chapter of the Panchadasi that we are doing is the next step after the Tattva Bodha. Tattva Bodha is the basic fundamental. It's like biology 101, and then we are doing biology 201 or 102 or whatever you want to call it. So in the Tattva Bodha, there is a sentence which if you remember, I don't know if you remember this or not, it says, apanchikrita pancha mahabhutaihi kritam satkarmya janyam sukha dukkhadi bhoga sadhanam pancha jnanendriyani pancha karmendriyani pancha pranadayah manascha ekam buddhischa ekam evam saptadasha kalabhihi saha yat tishtati tat sukshma shariram. Anyway, the reason I'm saying that is that it defines what a subtle body is. It consists of 17 things. We've also done that here also. But then it defines it as bhoga sadhanam. Bhoga sadhanam. That's the important thing. It is the means of experiences. So the subtle body is the means of experience, and that we will explain in more detail in a minute. Then it explains the gross body. In the gross body, it says, so in the subtle body, it says apanchikrita. Apanchikrita means non-grossified. And we will explain that in more detail in a minute. I just want to give you the reference that these two books have a good relationship. One is a basic book, the other one has a little bit more advanced content to it. Then in the gross body, it says panchikrita pancha mahabhutaihi kritam satkarmyajanyam sukha dukhadi bhoga ayatanam. Ayatanam this word is used. That word means the place. A better word than the embodiment would be called abode, A-B-O-D-E, an abode of experiences. So I'm just giving you the word meaning. I haven't explained the whole thing yet. So now we can say that Ishvara, for the sake of fulfilling the desires of the individuals that have been pending from the previous life or the previous state, even in this life, the previous state, and certainly the previous life, it provides with a grossified form of the five elements, beginning with space, to create the sense objects and an abode for the experience of the jivas. Okay, so this is just the word. So far it hasn't been connected. Now let's look at to see what the connection is. So here we can take an example. If you analyze the elements of any experience, okay, so like for example, suppose you eat ice cream. Experience of joy resulting from ice cream. Let's look at that as an example. So there, what you need is ice cream. So there are actually three things that are necessary. So let's look at that. You need the actual object called ice cream. Then you need a sense of taste. So this is what is called rasana indriya. Rasana indriya. So rasana indriya means a sense of taste. Okay? And then, so you say, okay, that should only be two things necessary, the sense of taste and the ice cream, that should be it? No. We need a third thing where the taste actually takes place, which is on our tongue. The tongue is the physical embodiment. If you want to use the word embodiment, is the physical embodiment of the sense of taste. Sense of taste. When all three of them come together, there is an experience of eating ice cream. And if there is an absence of any one of these three things, experience doesn't take place. If the ice cream is not there, forget it. You can keep on dream about it, but you won't really. It's a very funny thing that the only place you can experience the joy of eating ice cream without having ice cream is in dream. Dream is a very funny thing. Imagine so many things you make it real. This is why there is examples given that supposing you were hungry the whole day in your waking state, and you couldn't find food, like supposing you were on either on a diet, or supposing you had a vratam, and you were really hungry the whole day, like Ekadashi vratam, and finally you just eat something, and then you eat to your fulfillment. You know what might happen when you go to dreaming? You are still hungry. You're still hungry. All the food is in your tummy, but it has no relevance to your dream. You can still be very hungry, and vice versa. You can be rich in real life and poor in dream, or poor in real life and rich in dream. Anyway, so that's a separate thing. So if the ice cream is not there, you cannot have an experience. Suppose your tongue is defective, like you may have burnt it. You may have burnt it. That's very possible. Now your sense of smell is there, but it is not functional because the tongue is called ayatanam. So tad bhogaya. So now look at this. For the experience, Ishvara has created bhogya vastu. Bhogya vastu means ice cream and other things, called bhogya vastu. It also created bhoga ayatanam. What it means is that it has created not only the thing to be experienced, but also a place where the experiencer meets with the objects of the experience. It meets with it. Why do we say it has to meet with it? Will become clear in a minute. So let's complete our task of the three things: ice cream, a ayatanam, which is the tongue. The third thing can be missing as well, which is your sense of taste is missing. Usually it is not missing, but it can be better understood by shifting the example to seeing things. Seeing things. So let's pursue that, the secondary example of seeing things, and then we will come back to, after completing all the three of them, which is bhogya vastu, thing to be experienced. Then the sadhana has two elements to it. What are the two elements to it? One is the indriya, which is subtle, so that the sense is subtle. And the other one is the gross element, which is bhoga ayatanam. And here we are only talking about the grossification. Remember, the whole thing is grossification, the next stage. So those are the three things. So the second example, let's go to the second example. So here what happens is, the difference between the grossified place where the experience takes place and the subtle experiencer, which is like seeing or tasting. Okay? So here the example of seeing would be a little bit more clearer. It's true for all of them, but a little clearer. So here what happens is, and this is really the case, that a patient can go to the doctor and said, "Sir, I cannot see anything. All of a sudden, my left eye, it's complete darkness. I can see from my right eye, but on the left eye, I cannot see anything." Doctor says, "Okay, let me look at it." So he goes through a lot of sophisticated testing, this, that, or the other, and then makes a kind of like a comment and says, everything seems to be working. All the elements of your eyes are working. And then the person says, I still cannot see. So it says, really? I believe you. I know you're not lying or anything like that. But I don't see anything. The reason for this is an important definition, a boundary line between sukshma and sthula, between subtle and gross. Okay? So the distinction between subtle and gross is not arbitrary. Because when does it become subtle? When does it become no? Here is the definition. If something can become the object of your senses, it is gross. If something can not become an object of your senses, but it is still there, it is subtle. Like, in fact, we can see this. We can see each other's bodies. We can see this person is a male, this person is a female, this person is Indian, this is American. This we can see. So this is what is called gross. This is called sthula sharira, gross body. This we can see. Everybody can see that, unless you have a defective eye. But if your eyes are working, you can see that. But what you are thinking, you cannot see. What is your insight? So really speaking, we can say this, that we don't really see the other person. Only when the other person expresses itself, then we can impute some kind of a thing. That supposing you are very disturbed, then we say his mind is very angry. We can infer that, but you cannot see it. So going back to this example of seeing, the doctor can only see your eye, which is called bhoga ayatanam. And another word is used called golakam. So golakam also means the place where the eyes, so there also, just like in the case of the tongue, you need to see through the physical eye. But the physical eye is only a camera. It's only a camera. Your sense of seeing, you cannot objectify. That is your own sense. I told you this very funny example that our Guruji Swami Dayanandji used to give. This is a real, actual case. I think I told you that. I'll repeat it just in this particular context. When he first came to the US, and everybody said, Swamiji, we're going to do a complete medical checkup on you. Your whole body, everything will be done. And so, do you have any problems? And so he said, well, my eyesight is getting a little weaker. He was diabetic for a long time, and it started to affect a lot of things on his thing. So his eyesight became imperfect a long time ago. So he says, no problems. We'll get you the best possible doctor. So he said, I was very happy. Now I'll go through all the testing. I've come to the US, the right place, the rich place. So he went to an optometrist, ophthalmologist, and so on. And so then he sat down. All these machines were there. He was very impressed. What a beautiful, I've never seen anything like this in India. This is so nice. So he sat back. So then the person said, okay, do you see line number 1? So Swamiji said, yeah, I see E-A-S-T-U. Okay, how about line number 2? Then Swamiji said that. How about 3? That I'm not sure of. Close one eye. No, I think he can. So he says the doctor kept asking me. So I was thinking, this is America. They have all these machines. And this whole thing is going to cost a bundle. Why don't you do it to me? Just I'll keep my eyes closed, or I'll keep it open for you. You tell me how what the glass sizes and everything. No. Why is that? Because the doctor cannot see whether you see or not. So the subtle body, so now I'll summarize this and just look at this. The subtle body cannot directly contact the gross objects. The sense of taste, it is necessary for your sense of taste to work, but the sense of taste cannot directly contact an ice cream. You have to go through an intermediate point, and that intermediate point is called the grossified form of the sense organs. So you need to have a place of transactions. And so for me also, I need to have, for me to transact with you and for you to transact with me, thoughts are not enough. I may have I can read verse number 26. And then you're saying, what's he saying? And I don't have any hands. I cannot say I'm number 26. I have no tongue because I'm using no sthula sharira. I'm just using sukshma sharira. Even though really my personality is basically sukshma sharira, as your personality is also your sukshma sharira. But for us to interact, we need a grossified form of our sense organs of action, and so on and so forth. So the transactions are done with the grossified form. So therefore it says, Bhagavan, Ishvara, has to manufacture a grossified form of Taijasa and Vishwa, because otherwise no transactions are possible. No transactions are possible. And the only thing that you can do is to simulate it during the dream, where you imagine a body. You imagine talking. Yes, you can imagine a son. That's a different thing. That's a very beautiful thing. But in our transactions, for this Jagrat Avastha, you need grossification. So therefore now we can reread this and get a best sense of it. Tat bhogaya punaha. Punaha means after it has been decided by the Shrishti Karta, which is Ishwar, the very creator of this whole creation. After he has decided, I better fulfill the desires of this person, because he's been asking for it. He's been asking for it, I better provide it. The next thing he's got to do is to also provide you with the gross body that matches the gross objects. That's what he's saying. Tad bhogaya punaha bhogya bhoga ayatanan janmane is created. And then the second line says the first part of how this is done, which will come in verse number 27 next. But he simply introduces it by saying, Panchi karoti bhagavan pratyekam vyadadikam. He makes it grossified. This is very famous, you may have already heard about this, very famous, well accepted and often repeated process by which the subtle body is made gross body. It's called Panchikaranam. So that we will see in a little bit. But I have some other things to first finish with that. So let me make sure that I've completed the... So Abhimanam I wanted to talk about, that is done. Then Ayatanam, the doctors, etc. Okay. So now let me finish the definition of Bhagavan. Okay, and then we will go to, we will shift over to karma. All this is all related. So we'll shift over to karma. So, but first, to explain this word in the second line, Panchikaroti Bhagavan, Pratyekam Vyadadikam. So the Bhagavan word, as we started last week also, is a technical word. Even though we say Bhagavan this, Bhagavan that, and so on and so forth, it's a very technical word. And it consists of the 6 bhagas, called bhaga. So bhagas, the one that has the bhagas are called Bhagavan. And the one that has the full measure in each one of them, in full measure, is called the Ishvara, Bhagavan, but in partial measure is you and I. So we are actually a kind of like a copy of Bhagavan. We will explain that in a minute. Very much like if you have the sun reflecting in a body of water, it still shines very much, but it is not the sun. It is just a copy of the sun. Or even though it shines very brightly, and you cannot even look at it, it is that bright. So please keep that in mind. It is not just only the Ishvara has it. We are all endowed with limited versions of these bhagas. So bhaga asya asti iti Bhagavan. The one that has bhaga is called Bhagavan. And here, those things are given is called Aishwaryasya, Samagrasya, Dharmasya, Yashasaha, Shriyaha, Jnana, Vairagyam, iti esham, Shannam, Bhaga, iti rinam. The translation of that is that the one that has all 6 of them in full measure is called Bhagavan. So let's look at each one of them very quickly. I won't spend a lot of time on it. So one is Aishwaryam. Aishwaryam means the ability to do anything. Anything. Ability to, this is called boss. The boss, the relative boss is that as an individual contributor, maybe you can do a few things. Then your boss has more powers, and that person's boss has even more power. And even the CEO is also beholden to the board of directors. The board of directors are beholden to the stockholders. So everybody has a boss. But relatively speaking, they are a little bit more powerful. The CEOs can just fire somebody without any cause. Later on, they might have some answers to questions, but at that point in time, our big boss, Mr. Trump, he says, Tillerson, where are you? He says, I'm in Africa. He says, come right back out. And so, I mean, he's a crazy boss, but he's a boss. What can you do? So this is called Aishwaryam. Called Aishwaryam. Aishwaryam means the ability to do anything. Anything. And in the case of the human being, so look at this. In the case of the human beings, or any beings for that matter, we also have some Aishwaryam. But our Aishwaryam is limited. Limited. We are a boss of a few people, but not of others. Ishvara is, there is no one above him. No one needs to be above him. The buck stops with him. He is the Aishwarya. And also another interesting thing you can see, is so there is interaction between these various things. So for example, dharma. So Aishwarya and Dharma also related, as is Aishwaryam with Yasha and etc. We'll go into each one of them very quickly, but let's look at Dharma. So Dharma means here the ability to fulfill the karma with a karma phala. Karma phala is based on dharma. This is why, so for example, the Lord Mrityu, the Lord of Death, is called Dharmaraja. Dharmaraja. So Lord Mrityu, it's not arbitrary. It is not arbitrary. It is not as though people will say, hey, you know, this is what happens. You see some accident takes place and a young woman who was, this is what happened that in Yountville, she was a pregnant 35-year-old, I think, person who was killed by this guy. And you say, wow, what happened? She never really bothered anybody, and she was about to give, she was pregnant. And again, she's dead. And so it doesn't look like there's some reason for it or so forth. But then we have our limited understanding. And it will come in karma in a minute, but anyway. So in the case of Dharmaraja, there is absolutely no, it is no accident. It is what needed to be at any one time in the larger picture. I will repeat, there's a very funny thing that Swamiji had told us once, that there's this old lady who was said, you know, and this is what happens to all the older people who are in their 80s and 90s. They say, you know, my time has come. I don't know why Ishvara doesn't lift me. And let me go. And I'm being a burden to my family and this, that, or the other. So this, and my dad used to say the same thing. And so this lady used to say, oh, every day she'd pray, say, I want you, just take me away. I'm just being a burden. I'm getting sicker and sicker. So one day she got up in the morning and she saw this very black and very frightful form standing in front of her. And she said, Amma, I am Dharmaraja, Lord of Death, Mrityu. Let's go. Let's go. So she says, what? I haven't had breakfast yet. She says, Amma, it's time to go. She says, but let me say goodbye to people. No. And my father, I remember this, he used to get up early in the morning and read the newspaper, Times of India, in his bed. Before anything was going on, he was reading it. So this morning he was reading Times of India. And then my mother got up and the servants, all the people got up and they were all cleaning the house and so on. And my mother had gone out to get some vegetables from the vendor. And all of a sudden the domestic person said, Mem Saab, come quickly, come quickly. And she said when she reached him, he had fallen from the side of the bed. And the newspapers were on top of him. And he was gone. He didn't even have time to say goodbye or anything like this. What a wonderful way to go, really. That is it. It's just went just like that. She says, I was there for 2 minutes ago. Can you believe how quickly a person can just disappear? So this is what is called Dharmaraja. So in the case of Ishvara, there is no discontinuity. We may not understand why that is the case, but everything is done according to a larger picture. So Aishwaryasya Dharmasya. One very interesting thing, really, by the way, is an important thing to see. So now we come to an introduction to karma and karma phala. action and the results of the action, karma and karma phala. Okay, so let's make a note of this. So what happens is that if you, so this is what is called kriya. Kriya means an action or karma, and pratikriya. Pratikriya means the results of that action. Results of that action. Okay? So here Swami Maheswaranji gave a beautiful example. I really, I could understand this even before, but to see in articulation in the form of an example is very good. So Swamiji said, suppose you throw a ball at the wall, a rubber ball, hopefully just a rubber ball, not a cricket ball. That'll damage the wall. So a rubber ball, as the kids do, you throw the ball at the wall, and the ball comes back right away. This is called kriya and pratikriya. Now suppose you throw the ball and then the ball may fall down, but behind your head, a ball hits you from behind behind the head. You know what you will say? Who did this? Because the wall didn't do it. That means there is some Chaitana person, one who is alive and who is thinking and who has a mind, and for some reason he hit me with the ball from behind. So what are the implications of this? Enormous. The implications are, any time you do not have an obvious kriya and pratikriya, there is someone who has created the phalam for you. It is not a machine. Not a machine. And in fact, this is what happens. I can expand this to defining the two elements of phalam, karma phalam. So one is called drishta and the other one is called adrishta. So drishta phalam and adrishta phalam. Okay? Drishta phalam and adrishta phalam. I gave you this example, I think, before, that supposing you are, every time I go to Rishikesh and these crowded streets with all these buses and so on and so forth, going back and forth, I'm reminded of this example that I had heard, that there was an old man who was walking on the side of the road in a wet weather, monsoon, there's a lot of mud on the road and so on and so forth. And his poor guy is just trying to make sure that I don't fall into the mud, so he's walking on the edge of the main road with a stick, he's so on and so forth. And all of a sudden there is a bus that is coming who's trying to overcome some other one. And there was a young man who saw this coming. And what he did was he pushed the old man forcibly, and the guy fell into the mud, and his clothes were ruined. And he got up and he says, "Why'd you do that? What happened? What's wrong with you?" So the drishta phala is that the person was perhaps even injured, or if not injured, at least he was in mess with the mud. This is the drishta phala. Drishta phala means immediate. What is gross? You see, this is the thing now, the difference between gross and subtle. So the gross body fell down. And there was a gross action of making him fall down. And then I think people would come to him saying, "Sir, he saved your life." We saw it coming, and I am so appreciative that he had the presence of mind, because there was no time to pull you away or anything. He just pushed you back like this, saved your life. Now imagine doing this out of the goodness of your heart. You think that just an obvious thank you would be enough? No. Yeah, he was probably saying, oh, thank you, that's it. It's just like, somebody opens a door to you and you say, thank you. That's also, it's a thank you. Here he saved this person's life. What punya he's going to get. Same thing that happens in all these school shootings where the guys, they die because of, they take a bullet hole for something. And they die, so drishtaphala is that they die. Adrishtaphala is. And so you think there is no adrishtaphala? No. There is adrishtaphala which is kept in the account of the people. And at the right time, the karma phala is given. So now going back to the example of throwing the ball on the wall. So this is the thing we have to see. When something happens to us where there is no obvious answer, we have to remember Ishvara. This is how it happens. This is exactly, someone has stored the results of the previous action and that appropriate moment. Good or bad, it could be both ways. Could be both ways. Swami Maheshananji gave us another very beautiful example, which I'll recite here also. He said, supposing there is a shopkeeper, and he's got a lot of people who are working in the shop, like a, let's say a simple clothing shop where your cloth is being, and so it's a very popular place and people buy clothes and so on and so forth. So near Diwali time, there's a lot of traffic, a lot of people going to buy clothes. And so the owner of the shopkeepers, or the owner of the shop calls his people and said, I need to really have you work overtime because I really need your help. And so he talked to two people. And so the one of them he said, what, he's always asking for overtime. And I don't have the time. I've got a family to support. So he says, no, sir, I cannot work overtime. So then there's another person who's very loyal to him. He's been working with him for several years. He said, sir, whatever you say, when do you want me to work? He says, work until 10 o'clock tonight. Shops don't close. He says, done. Done. No problems. And nothing happens. Both of them they'll come back the next day and so on. 1st of January, this fellow hands bonuses to his people. And to this one guy, he gives some bonus. He gives bonus to everybody. This other person, he gives a huge bonus. Because he's reliable, he always listens. So all of a sudden, supposing somebody just comes in and this is unexpected. He maybe doesn't give bonuses on a predictable time. He just comes in and gives him a simple hand. He opens the envelope, there's 1,000 rupees. And the other one also gets 100 rupees or something like this. So in this action, Swami Maheshananji says, look at what has happened. That there is a karma phala which is different from, this is adrishta. Because the shop owner has now registered this guy, everybody's okay. They have families to support and so on and so forth. But I have noticed this person really put special attention to the needs of the shop. I really like him. So we can close this example by saying that karma and karma phala, kriya and pratikriya, when they are separated and something happens, that means there is an intelligent person behind that who has taken everything into account, has given me the phalam. Beautiful example. That's what our life is all about. And all of a sudden, you get hurt. And so on. So now, in fact, let us go into the nature of karma and karma phala. I haven't finished. Let me finish. I'm running out of time. So let's finish this. Very quickly go through the rest of the Bhagavan. I haven't finished that. So I already gone through Aishwaryam, Dharmaha, and then Yashas. Yashas means fame. Fame means from which you become famous. So famous means that everyone has an idea that this world has come about by something. And so the Creator is famous. But not everyone knows the nature of the Creator. And some people say there is no Creator. So there is a very interesting story for this last thing, that there is no Creator, there is no God. When we say Creator, means there's no God. There's no God. No God. And so there was a big devotee of God, Bhakta, who used to do all pujas and goes into all and so on and so forth. Or the bhaktas of the pujas that were done recently. Supposing that person meets a friend, he says, "Where were you?" He says, "I was, for the last 11 days I was doing." So he says, "Are you crazy? Why? Why'd you do that?" He says, "Hopefully the Lord will be happy with him." He says, "There is no Lord." So the bhaktas, if you ever meet a person, then drop down on their feet and kiss their shoes and say, "Thank you, thank you." So the guy, "Why are you doing this?" He says, "You know what? Those who say there is no God, know God. Because supposing you say there is no dog in this house, in this room. There's no dog in this room. That means you know what a dog is, and he's not here." So he says, "I've been struggling to find out if there is God or not, but you've already found out there is no God here. So that means that you know what God is." And so it is just a way of saying that the fame, yashaha, can be either as understood or misunderstood or not understood. But the presence of God is everywhere. So this is called yashaha. Then shriyaha. Shriyaha also means that whatever things that we have in our disposal, we have limited things at our disposal. But one who has all the things at the disposal is called Shriman, Shri Vallabha. Shri Vallabha. So Vishnu is called Shri Vallabha, that he is the possessor of all Shris. All Shris. Our Swami Dayananda used to say that. He said, please don't get too attached to money or to anything in life. Please remember that all Shri, including money and other comforts, are married to Vishnu. And you enjoy her company. That's okay. Have a, dance with her and so on and so forth. But she is the wife of Vishnu. And if she leaves you, do not cry over it, because she doesn't belong to you anyway. So this is what is called Shriyaha, the one who has all of them. Then the last two, Jnana and Vairagyam. Jnana and Vairagyam. So in Jnanam it is very clear, it is Purnata. It is completeness. Why? Because we have limited knowledge, and the one has that complete knowledge is Ishvara. This Vairagyam is a very interesting thing. Vairagyam means an attitude of not having raga. Raga means an intense desire, any desire actually, but let's say for example's case, a intense desire. Now the intense desire has two elements to it. What are the two elements? One is that I don't have it yet. And the second one is that by getting that, it'll be very good for me. These are the two elements of intense desire. In the case of Ishvara, it is not possible that Ishvara does not have anything, because everything belongs to him. He already has it. And it is not possible that he would desire something because there is nothing left for him to desire. In Gita, there is a verse, I forget we have already, think it's in one of the chapters we have already finished, where it says, Na anavaptam avaptavyam. Avaptavyam means one which is capable of being, one which is desired. And anavapta means one which has not already been obtained. So Krishna says in the Gita that there's nothing for me to do. But still, in the context of that discussion that we had in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that I am still interested. It's not as though I don't care, but it is nothing for me to do. I'm done. So Vairagyam also is one of the bhagas. So in summary, Aishwaryaha, Dharmaha, Yashaha, Shriyaha, Jnana and Vairagyam iti esham shannam. These sixfold bhagas are iti irana. These are defined. This is called Bhagavan. Okay. So maybe I'll just very quickly go through the karma and karma phala. So the karmas are of three types. Okay. One is called sharirika karma, bodily karma. One is called vachika karma, which is verbal, and one is called manasika karma, which is mental. Now, bodily karma has both the other two. It has the verbal and the mental. And verbal has mental, and mental has only mental. So the results are appropriate. So in the case of physical action, you can hit someone, or you can save someone. In the case of this example that we saw, that this person saved somebody. He pushed him. This is called sharika karma. Usually our sharika karma, the one that predominates is where the mother, for example, keeps the baby in the womb. This is a sharika karma. And also protects the child and feeds the child. And both the parents, they actually protect. So this is all positive, all very positive. And negative part is that you hit someone and you, hopefully not, kill someone. All of those are sharirika karma. And one interesting thing about is that the sharirika karma gives rise to sharirika karma phalam. So anytime you have a physical injury, you have a physical problem, or you have a physical comfort, it is due to sharika karma. It's a one for one. That is one thing. Then you have verbal karma. Verbal karmas are more powerful because Supposing you hit someone, the wound from the hitting of someone, even for example, sometimes we have to hit our children. They don't obey, and so you give them a slap. And so the result of the slap hopefully will be gone in a matter of minutes. So the end result of a sharirika karma is very limited. The end result of a verbal karma is much more lasting. Insults can last for years. Swami Dayanand used to say that please be very careful when your children are growing up. This is the defect that fathers have. Mothers usually don't have this defect. The fathers have this result. And the kid is not doing the things, and the father takes this finger out. You know something? You are never going to be anybody important in your life. He says, oh my God, why did you say that? Because the kid will never forget it. It's not like a physical wound. And in fact, many of the people who are driven in their life, they work extra hard and nothing has satisfied them. It's because subconsciously they want to prove their father wrong. It happens. So this is called vachika karma. Mental ones are just as damaging, where you don't say anything, but you think, I hope God punishes this guy. I hate them. You don't say anything, you haven't done anything, but you have given a prayer to Ishvara, and that is recorded. Your sense of hatred. Maybe you should say just, I'm sorry, it's better to say something and finish it off, but to have a mental karma. Anyways, I won't go into detail. So these are, then the karma phalas are also according to all these three kinds of karmas. So now we will go into the one remaining thing which we will do next time, along with number 27, is the Panchikaranam. What does Panchikaranam means? The mixing up of all of this. So with that, I'll close today's class. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorna Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. All right. Yeah.
So talking about the last point that you were explaining, so there must be some kind of remedy to that. You say something what do you call it, prayashchitta,
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
So prayashchitta also can be done in a physical manner or verbal manner or manasik, all three of them. Yeah, you can do that. So really a lot of our prayers, including the Rudram that chanted, all this, that Ati Rudram that was chanted in the Livermore temple and so on, has really all three aspects of that. And so what it means is that so the prayashchitta can be done either at a human level, like for example, supposing you have a spat with someone, and it is because of your ego clashing with someone else's ego, and you have some kind of a verbal spat. And then you can do some prayashchitta by saying, I'm sorry, maybe I was wrong. And really speaking, most people will forgive you at that, unless you keep on doing it again and again. But if your apology is sincere, then that's the prayaschitta karma. Then from a sharirika standpoint, if there are some problems that you've done by some eating or something, eating the wrong things, then you can take some things, antacids or whatever it is, to take care of that. And then in the case of the manasik karma, which is really the most powerful, it comes about by an attitudinal change, where instead of just visibly criticizing everyone, you really, just change the attitude and look at the good qualities of others as best as possible, or at least stop criticizing. Because I think the problem with criticizing others, there's several problems criticizing, mentally I'm talking about, not verbally, but just mentally having criticism, is that, first of all, it is damaging because you have committed some kind of a wrong action by putting someone down. The second thing is that by putting someone down, you are artificially inflating your own ego, which may be false. Look at this person, he doesn't even know how to dress. Very poor taste in clothes and so on. Look at me, I'm so well dressed, and so on and so forth. So by doing this, you are really focusing on the wrong things. What does dress have to do with anything? Let people dress as they want to. What's the big thing? So that kind of a transformation in your thinking is prayaschitta karma, and that may have to require some conscious effort on your part. So every time, because the tendency to criticize others is built over a long time. You feel good about it. Everybody else is very inferior. I'm so superior, and that has really taken a long time. So first time that something comes in, then you say, "Oh, why am I thinking that way? Is there some truth in it?" And you will still criticize for a while. Pretty soon, if you keep on doing the opposite of that, then your mind will become purer, and you'll just and the problem with, really speaking, this is what is called antakarna shuddhi. This is the purification of the mind. The problem in criticizing others and so on is you fail to appreciate the true value of yourself. Like in the case of the dress, I just gave that example. You are feeling good about because of the dress that you're wearing, the clothes that you're wearing, not any reality about yourself. And so any kind of a criticism is an impediment it's harmful to yourself because you fail to appreciate. But a mind which is loving and which is accepting and which is tolerant of others and so on is also a mind which is capable of understanding the mahima of the Atma. And you will not understand that if you're so busy in trivial as pursuits of others. Something like that. Prayaschitta karma. Yes?
I just have a question on the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that when you criticize somebody for the dress,
Yes.
it is the other way around. When you appreciate that somebody's dresses, is it that you feel inferior yourself?
No, it all depends. It all depends. You can appreciate it and say, this is a very well-dressed person. No, there's no harm in doing that.
So it does not harm individuals?
Not necessarily. Unless you, you can harm it by saying, my God, I don't know how people are, they have so much money and they've got, and I am such a poor person. Then it is harmful to yourself. But if you genuinely appreciate somebody's good taste, that's wonderful. Yeah. Yes.
So, karma and karma phalas are not just from this lifetime.
No,
from
no. Yes.
gazillion lifetimes.
Yes, very much so.
So on the one hand, Advaita points us to our Swarupa, which is Satchitananda.
Correct.
And on the other hand, there's a lot of discussions around karmas and karma phalas.
Right.
So how does one sort of steer towards the Swarupa aspect of it so that karma and karma phala over time sort of not wither away but lose their
Right.
impact on our
So,
day-to-day life.
yeah. So just wanted to repeat the question. Punita was asking that if we are so concerned about the karma and karma phala, whereas the Advaita Vedanta is concerned about the swarupa of the person, then how do the two interact and so on? So the way I would answer that is that a complete understanding of Ishvara's world, on how it how it works, what am I part of it, and so on, is a necessary first step for you to understand the swarupa of yourself. You almost cannot do it. You can do it, but nothing will happen. Why? Because on your disparity of the understanding of swarupa and also inability to get along with the world will be so stark that it will pull you down. Try it. It won't be very successful. So you have to come to terms with the world in your own way. But the coming to terms doesn't mean that this is an infinite process, because the karmas are infinite in number. So you cannot do that. It is just on the surface. You have to be not hateful. So when I say not hateful, that means you have to accept the world, and you have to see the presence of Ishvara in this functioning world, which is working very well. Don't be critical of it. This is a big job that Ishvara has, and he's doing the best possible thing that anyone can do. And so you accept your relationship to it. And also another thing is that you accept your own karma and karma phala. You know, a lot of things can go wrong in one's life. And then to have a accepting attitude is to yourself. So when I talk about be kind to others, I think it's more important, be kind to yourself. Very important. And so it is not until you do that, you settle the accounts with yourself as a person, will your mind really be absorbed in the understanding of the Swarupa. And you don't need to do that. If you can be an exception, because people like Ramana Maharshi, etc., they got there very quickly. If you are an embodiment of Ramana Maharshi, try it. But not many people are. And so chances are, from a probabilistic standpoint, that you do have to go through this intermediate step. But then the more that you are not fighting with your idea of the world and your own personality and so on, just accept it, the better off and the faster it will be for you to appreciate Swarupa. So something like that is what I would answer. I think we are over time and this person is waiting for us, so we'll close the class.